Welcome to the deep dive for this week. Don't forget to visit the website at deepdiveau.net. Check out our socials and Patreon page at the Deep Dive AU. Subscribe via your favorite podcast app or like and subscribe at our YouTube page at the Deep Dive AU. And don't forget, go to www.deepdiveau.net, go to our merchandise page where you can purchase one of these deep dive mugs.
This is the Deep Dive Podcast. And here is your host, Michael Coles.
Louise Cridland is a holistic psychologist and mindset mentor with over 12 years' experience in the industry. She's passionate about helping people overcome anxiety and challenge conventional norms so they can become their own trendsetter in their life and business and do what they love. Louise has a unique blend of expertise in psychology, spirituality, body intelligence, eco-psychology, and neuroscience, and her approach transcends traditional methods. Louise Cridland, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
So what are the challenges people face when trying to overcome anxiety when pursuing their big dream?
I think one of the biggest challenges people struggle with is that they believe their inner critic, or the voice inside their head, the thoughts that say they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they don't know enough yet, all of the above. I think most people struggle with that. And when you listen and believe those thoughts and that voice, it really prevents you from putting yourself out there and really following your passions and really chasing those big dreams or big vision that you might have.
Okay, so how can understanding the sources of your anxiety help you take actionable steps towards your goals?
So this is a good one. So most people that come to me wanting to know where they're at, why they are the way they are, and what can they do to change. So it's really helpful in the early stages to learn about yourself and to get insight into your behavior, to get insight into how you think, how you feel. And really, once you've got that insight, then you can start to be aware of it. And then once you're aware of these things, you can change it. You can't change anything that you're not aware of. So that's what's really important, to get that insight. And then you can start to learn practical strategies throughout the day to start to challenge some of those things. What I will say is, though, sometimes I've noticed with people, they can get stuck. They can get stuck in this phase of questioning why they are the way they are. And so what I say to these people is, hands up, I've been there too, that sometimes you have to drop the why and drop the questioning about why you are the way you are in order to accept who you are and to move on. So that's just another caveat to, if you're wanting to understand who you are, great, really important. And then sometimes you need to let the why go and just focus on where you want to go instead of where you've come from.
Okay, so what daily practices help reduce anxiety, in your opinion, feelings of inadequacy, and increase confidence to pursue your passions, including like physical activity, mindfulness, creative outlets, self-compassion and gratitude, etc.? So what do you recommend?
So there's lots. And I'm probably going to say an annoying response, but it's very individualized. So what's really important is when you're trying to overcome anxiety is finding what works for you. And it really is different for different people. So if I look at my own story and my own experience, the first phase of dealing with anxiety, dealing with doubt, for me in my early 20s, well, for a long time, backtracking, I was really avoiding and trying not to feel all of my emotions. So I think most people are pretty good at trying to run away, push down, suppress their emotions. So what's really, really important and was really a turning point in my life in my 20s was, okay, I've actually just got to feel all my feelings. And some of them are really uncomfortable. And so that is one of the first steps and a daily practice, actually, to really just keep coming back to it's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel sad, angry, whatever it might be. Now people are probably wondering, okay, yeah, that's nice, but then what do you do after all the feeling? And what got me through anxiety from my 20s and into my 30s, I discovered and created a daily practice for me. And that really incorporated a lot of meditation, which I'm going to give some other options if people aren't into meditation. So that really involved getting quite stuck into meditation. And for people just beginning, it could be guided meditations initially. I got quite deep into meditation and trained with a ordained Zen master in Zen Buddhism. But you don't have to do that initially. So a daily practice really needs to involve some sort of way that you move your body. So physical activity. And again, you've got to find something that you love. If you don't love the exercise that you do, you'll end up not doing it. You'll end up self-sabotaging yourself and then you'll quit. So you've really got to find something that you enjoy. The next part of that daily practice I really recommend if you struggle with anxiety is some sort of meditation or mindfulness. If you can do meditation, great, because that was a real turning point in my life. When I started to practice meditation regularly, I started to realize that I can feel safe in my body. Not with the help of anyone else, any sort of strategy, anyone talking to me, any sort of support. I learned that myself, could create that level of safety, that sense of peace or calm. And that really came from learning to breathe and sit with the uncomfortable emotions. And then, So you said physical activity, mindfulness.
Creative outlet, self-compassion, gratitude.
I'm going to talk a bit more about self-compassion and gratitude a bit later when we start to talk about visualizations. But in getting over anxiety, one thing I do with my clients a lot, most people find it really hard to be compassionate. So what I get clients to do is to find a picture of themselves when they're a toddler. So when they're really cute and easy to love, and have that picture, old school picture, so they can touch it or they can have it on their phone as well. But to learn to be compassionate towards yourself as an adult, you've got to start with, can you be compassionate to that little person who's actually still a part of you? So that's what I would say about compassion. And then gratitude. Gratitude can be hard if you're really anxious, but gratitude is so important in terms of our brain state. So we can't be creative and loving and gracious when we are fearful. So the more you can practice really feeling gratitude, not just I feel gratitude for blah, blah, blah. You actually have to drum up the emotion of gratitude in order to feel the full effects. And then what I said about creativity, you can't be anxious and creative at the same time. So it's so important for your brain to have moments where you're fully in the flow of a creative pursuit with no end goal, just for the very joy of doing the activity.
Okay. So how can journaling, affirmations, and visualizing success be used as tools to reduce doubt and help improve self-belief?
So I was mentioning with my own story, in my 20s and then early 30s, struggling with anxiety. So the first phase of that for me was creating a daily practice that really helped me to de-stress and unwind. Once I then started to really feel that solid level of peace, no longer struggling with panic attacks or anxiety, then I was able to move on to the next phase where visualization and journaling was really, really helpful for me. So what I find is really helpful about these things is that it gets you to sit down and realign with what's really important to you. What makes you happy? What are you really here for? What do you want to work towards? So journaling on these sorts of questions can be a really, really powerful way to focus and realign your energy. And it really is this thing of what you focus on is what ends up happening in your life. And then visualizations. I love visualizations in terms of imagining your future self. So imagining this future self that has got the ABC, all the things that you're wanting, whether it's a different career or pursuing your passion or living somewhere different or whatever it might be. And really taking some time to feel and imagine and visualize that future self that's already completed and achieved all the things that you want to achieve. In terms of affirmations, I use them briefly, but I don't use them a lot. I feel like they're helpful to note, but I don't always, I don't use them regularly. They haven't worked for me.
Okay. How can setting small, achievable goals and celebrating small wins contribute to building self-confidence and minimizing anxiety?
Okay, I love this question, because if you think about our brains are constantly scanning our environment for threat. That's just the way our brains were developed. And so our brain is always looking for safety. So when you start to push yourself, when you start to put yourself out there, when you start to go towards your vision or your dreams or pursuing your passions, it's often scary and it's often risky at times, socially, emotionally. And so our brains just see that as a threat. So by making small goals and then celebrating those goals when you meet them, you're telling your brain that your dream, your vision is safe. And so when it's safe, our brain doesn't tend to throw up as many obstacles internally when it starts to think that what we want is safe. And in terms of celebrating the small wins, again, it comes back to when you're celebrating, you're feeling gratitude, you're feeling happiness, and all of those positive states of mind help you bring into your life even more things. And if you're comparing two people, if someone's anxious and they don't believe in themselves, and then there's someone who is self-assured, believes in themselves, like which person are you more likely going to think that they will be able to help you or that they know what they want? And a person will go towards someone who is having some of those positive attributes about them. So celebrating the small wins is really helpful to get your brain into that sort of attractive mind state.
Okay. So what strategies can you implement to challenge those negative thoughts that arise from anxiety and doubt?
Okay. So this can be hard for some people, for a lot of people, but it takes practice, just like anything else. And that's why I do like meditation and mindfulness, because it's a way that you can train your brain. Just like when you go to the gym, you're training your body. We want to train our mind. And so some of the things that you can do when you struggle with anxiety, doubts, you've got to identify that you're actually having the doubt or the thought in the first place. I know that might seem obvious, but a lot of people have so many different thoughts swirling around in their minds. I think someone said you have 80 to 90,000 thoughts a day. So you want to be a bit more aware and intentional about those thoughts. So noticing the negative tone to the thought. So labeling, it's really important to label. Some people don't get why labeling your thoughts are so important. But when you do that, when you identify you're having a thought, it creates just a bit of space between you watching the thought and your thought. And why that's important is when you create that space, you have a choice. Do I listen to this thought? Do I believe this thought? Or do I want to actually reframe this thought? So the strategies really is to start with identifying and labeling your negative thoughts and calling out that inner critic. You know what really helped me on this topic, Michael, was that I heard I think she's a multimillionaire, she's a mentor, she's highly, highly successful. And I heard her speak one day, and she said, Even though I've achieved all this success in my life, I still have that inner critic, that voice that tells me I'm not good enough, that questions, who am I to do this? Who am I to put myself out there? And that was a turning point for me. When I heard someone who's that successful still has an inner critic, I thought, okay, we're never going to get away from our inner critic, but we can learn to not listen to it. We can learn to not believe what it says to us. So there are a couple of strategies around trying to challenge your negative thoughts.
Okay, so what techniques can be employed to reframe anxiety as a tool for growth rather than a barrier?
So again, there's a lot of tools that you can use. And one of the main ones is all around mindset. So when you come up against any sort of obstacle, any sort of challenge in your life, can you ask yourself, what is this experience trying to teach me? What can I learn from this experience? And that might sound very easy, but when you're going through a really difficult experience, it's really hard to do that at first. But again, it's like training your muscle, training your mind muscle to a more resilient mindset. And resilient people are able to adapt and be flexible when stuff happens. So how can you reframe any obstacle as a challenge? And so when you can do that, you start to see the challenges differently. You start to be able to move out of this stress state. So when we're stressed, our brains find it really hard to problem solve because the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of our brain, goes offline, or it's not working as efficiently.
Yeah, or there's sort of like, there's sort of like the pathways don't actually work either. I've experienced that.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So we need to notice when that's happening. And so when you can notice that actually I don't feel like my brain is really functioning that well at the moment, what can I do? What do I need? Going back to what we talked about earlier in terms of the daily practice. Am I moving my body? Am I eating enough protein, carbohydrates? And am I doing some sort of reflective, mindful practice? They are some of the most important things. And it's not new. Everyone knows that they're the things that they need to do. So what do you think? Like, why do you think people aren't doing those things if they know that they're the things they need to feel less stressed?
Okay. So how important it is to surround yourself with supportive individuals, and how can seeking professional guidance assist in that?
So a lot of people try and do it on their own. And I know I did for a long time when I was struggling with anxiety. And then even later on in my journey with starting my business, because most people want to feel like they can do it on their own. And look, you can for the most part. However, we are human beings, and human beings are designed to have blind spots. We will never fully know everything there is to know about ourselves. And that's just the magic and kind of the challenge of our emotions and our brains. So I always say to people, you need someone to speak to, whether it's a really supportive community, whether it's a mentor, a coach. I mean, I've invested a lot in coaches and therapists and mentors myself to help me moving more quickly towards what I want. And you can also learn a lot of strategies that you might not be aware of that would help you to move past your anxiety. Often we get really stuck in the emotions and our thinking, and we can't see a path forward. So that's why it's really important to connect in with someone that you feel aligned with. You have to feel aligned with them so that you can have a good connection. And then just in terms of who you surround yourself by, I don't know if you've heard this, Michael, but the 5 or 10 people you spend most time with, you end up being most like. So I found this really interesting when I heard about this. So if you're trying to start a business or change careers or follow your passions, it's really important to take stock on who you're surrounding yourself by. Are they supportive of what you want to do? If they are, great. If they're not, then you might need to start to get yourself into different networks so that you're surrounding yourself around people who are also aligned and doing what you're wanting to do.
Okay, so just going on a bit of a sidebar.
Great.
Now, apparently, you're offering a free gift to our listeners. My top 5 top tips for becoming your own trendsetter. Now, can you explain about that?
Yeah. So often people, when they see that word trendsetter, they think, okay, influencer, someone on Instagram. No, that's not really what I'm going for there. Trendsetter, for me, it's much more internal. So I talk about it becoming your own trendsetter or embracing your inner trendsetter. And what that means is really staying true to who you are, knowing yourself and knowing your worth, and knowing that what you want to bring into the world, what you're passionate about, is so important. And it may be not aligned with the people around you. It may not be aligned with what society might think you should do or be or say. It's really tapping into who you are and staying true to you. And everyone is unique. So everyone has a unique spin that they can bring to the world and unique gifts. So this free gift is really about my 5 top tips and some practical activities around how can I start being more true to myself. Because what's important about being your own trendsetter is that you elevate your presence. So think about 2 people. One person is anxious. They don't know themselves. They don't know what they want. They might even not know if what they like is good enough, or should they like something else, or should they pursue something else. Then you've got someone who's assured, self-assured. They believe in what they do. They love what they do. They know they're unique, just like everyone else is, and they've got something unique to offer to the world. Which person, like I was mentioning earlier, which person do you think might attract more people and have a more elevated presence? And it's certainly the one who believes in themselves. And I know this isn't always easy, so that's why I've really tried to simplify this process in the free gift that I've got to listeners to get you started on really going after what you want, because life is short.
Exactly. So you're also offering a life audit 4-week program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So this is a more in-depth program for people who are wanting to dive a little bit deeper. And so this is all about, well, the term is we start off doing a life audit. And this is exciting because, like I was saying before, a lot of people have blocks, and they're actually not aware of what's holding them back. Or they're aware of what's holding them back, but they don't know how to change it or don't know what to do about it. So this life audit gets really delving into everything about you. What areas of your life might be holding you back? How might the way you talk, think, dress, the people you surround yourself by, how might any of those things be holding yourself back? So we get really into the detail around where are you maybe losing your power or your assertiveness when you're speaking to people, for example. And so once people are aware of what might be holding them back, then we get stuck into, okay, what is the strategy for you to overcome these blocks so that you can keep moving forward towards the big dream or the big vision that you have?
Okay, so can you explain to us how we actually can get into the 4-week program?
Yeah. So I'll be launching this 4-week program in the coming weeks. So you can put your details in, go on the wait list. So then that notifies me that, yes, you're ready and you're wanting to dive deeper with me. And that's the way I can get your details. And then once I start to launch, I'll personally reach out to you so we can get you started.
That sounds wonderful. And so we'll put those in the show notes. So go to deepdiveau.net and you can get those information. And one last question that we'd like to sort of ask everybody here on the Deep Dive podcast is, in 30 seconds or less, if you could offer one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, okay. I love it. I've touched on it before, but it's believing in your unique potential, your unique gift, and your purpose is to bring that into the world. So stop believing that inner voice, that inner critic that tells you that you're not good enough, that who are you to do this? We all have that voice. So don't let it stop you. Can I just say one more thing on that?
Yes, absolutely.
So there was a media campaign around something like, what was it? Speak even if your voice is shaking. So I loved this campaign. I think it might have been about bullying, but what I loved about this campaign, especially if you're someone who struggles with anxiety and doubt, you need to keep moving towards your big vision, and you need to speak up even if your voice is shaking. Don't let the anxiety steal your credibility, your inspiration. Don't let it make you feel like you're not smart enough, you're not creative enough, and you don't have great things to share. So keep those words in mind. Speak even if your voice is shaking, because the world needs the anxious people, because often the most anxious can be some of the most intelligent and creative people on this planet. And often they don't put themselves out there because of the anxiety or the doubt. So that is what my not 30-second advice would be.
Louise Cridland, thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive podcast today.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Louise Cridland's top 5 tips for becoming your own trendsetter now is available at louisecridland.com. You can also check out her website and Instagram at Louise Cridland. Go to our show notes page at deepdiveau.net for your exclusive code for her upcoming live audit program.